This is Alvin Aki with Origami by Aki. And a lot of times people ask me, what are some skills you need for origami? And there are some very basic things. One is how to make a perfect fold. So you start, let's suppose we want to make a triangle fold from this. What you do is you match up the points together, bring this down to the end, make a fold, and then just go straight across on both sides. See, it's basically a perfect fold. You want to use your fingernail, by the way, to make it a sharp fold. Okay? And that's how you make a perfect fold. So now, another thing that you'll be doing is making one fold, or how to avoid paper bunching up. So for an example on that, let's suppose we're making a kite shape. So what you want to do for this is, and we're going to actually refold this in the same direction. So what you want to do is leave a slight space actually in between here. You see that white part in between. Now the reason for that is because we're going to again fold this over. So if we had this right next to each other, then when we again do this fold, the paper is going to bunch up in the middle. So to avoid that, you leave a slight space, and this one you want to bring so that they match up. Bring it right to the point. Again, using your fingernail. And this one you want to make the edges match up. And it'll come to a nice point here. And so that's how you avoid the paper underneath bunching up. So it'll come to a nice point. And you would actually use this to make a leaf for a flower. Okay. So in other words, you want to leave a slight space here so that when you bring these two over again, it doesn't bunch up underneath. So this is how you would make a fold for modular origami in making a multi-unit sphere or large modular cube, let's say. But so you start with this fold here, and what you want to do is then make a fold that goes along this edge, and it does not actually end up at the point here. So you can't just, come from that point and go down. What you have to do is, the key thing is to match this edge. And so you might say, well, I can just fold it over like this. But the problem with that is if you do that, then you're not going to get the very edge here because it's overlapping. So the way to do it is to flip it over and then match exactly where the fold would be in this direction, and then bring that all the way up, and you see that it does not come to the corner here. And then when you bring it back to the other side, well, now you've got the edge already folded, so now you can just follow that and use the fold. You just reverse the fold, but now you know that it does definitely follow this edge. So that's important. Instead of just doing it at first, you start by doing it on the other side to make sure it matches up, and then fold it in the correct direction. Okay, this is a very important part when you're working with complicated origami models, which take more than 10 steps, let's say, which it's pretty easy to get very complicated things, and it may be easy to follow them step by step, but then of course the problem is, how do you remember all that? And this is how you remember it. You take 5 sheets of paper, and what you do is you break it down into chunks. Like, let's say you take the first 4 or 5 steps, and you will do that, the first 4 or 5 steps with 4 sheets of paper. So you leave your 5th sheet of paper kind of off to the side, and you're going to do steps 1 through 4, you know, with one piece of paper, put that aside, do steps 1 through 4 with the second sheet, and third sheet, fourth sheet. Okay, so now you should know how to do steps 1 through 4 by heart. And then what you're going to do is, starting from that point, you're going to do the next chunk of, let's say, steps 5 through 10. You do steps 5 through 10 with the first one, steps 5 through 10 with second, third, and fourth. And then you keep doing, let's suppose the finished model takes 15 steps. So we've broken down into 3 steps, and you've done all three chunks with 4 sheets of paper. So you got 4 completed origami models. Now you're going to take your 5th sheet of paper you've been keeping off to the side, and you should be able to go all the way straight through from 1 through step 15 with your 5th sheet of paper, and hopefully you've memorized it at least to that point. If it's a real complicated thing, like suppose it takes 50 sheets, then what you want to do is break it down into, let's say, the first 15 steps. At that point, you want to keep your, let's say this is up to step 15. You want to keep that model in like a book, let's say, and say this is steps 1 through 15 or steps 1 through 10. And then you want to go to your next point where you again take 5 sheets of paper and go from steps 15 to say step 30. And up to that point, you'll have another finished model saying this is up to step 30. And then do, your final one is maybe step 50. And so once you have that on a sheet of paper, the preliminary, this is up to step 10, this is up to step 15, up to 30, then you should be able to follow it by just looking at the paper, because you'll be able to look at, it'll be a lot easier to remember. So even if it's complicated, once you do it a few times, you'll find that it becomes something that you could do by heart. So this is Alvin Aki with Origami by Aki, and those are some important skills that you should know about origami.